Welcome to Bitstorm, a comedy game design podcast by two guys who know nothing about comedy nor game design. I'm Trevor Scott, and with me, as always, is Ben Slinger.
Yeah, I am Ben Slinger, and welcome to the show.
Mm-hmm.
What are we doing tonight, Trev?
I'm not sure. Probably going to do some click pitch.
Yeah?
Maybe chuck a what three words, given that I've incorporated it into our random word generator Discord bot.
Look, let's just...
I seem to just grab everything and just incorporate it into this bot so that we don't have to go anywhere else.
Let's just mix it up. You know what you need to do next for the bot is put in a command that just gives you a random source, something from a random source. It could be a movie. It could be what three words. It could be a click pitch.
Cool. Okay, so the name of the game at the moment is Ramped Up Click Pitch, where we each have two words, an adjective and a noun. On the count of 3, 2, 1, we're going to click, we're going to get our words, throw them at each other, come up with a game design. When that doesn't work, we throw it away.
Yeah, let's do it. 3, 2, 1, click. Abandoned Northern.
Delightful caveat.
Delightful caveat, okay. So, I mean, Abandoned Northern definitely gave me just like a snow-covered cabin in the north kind of vibe to it.
Yeah, but the idea of abandoned also gave me an idea of like a nuclear winter sort of thing, of maybe the whole north is sort of irradiated and you're trying to get out of this area, but you've been snowed in for too long and it's starting to affect...
Could this be kind of a Stardew Valley-esque game, but set in a post-apocalyptic snow-covered wasteland?
So Stardew Valley, irradiated wasteland. Every morning when you get up, do you put your overalls on, then you put your radiation suit on?
That's it.
And you go outside, and yellow snow isn't always what you think it is. Like, sometimes you go out there and you check it out and it's like, no, someone's just pissed here.
Yeah, as opposed to the yellow cake uranium.
Being
Yeah.
Yeah.
I kind of like that idea rather than the classic, of what so many games are doing when they kind of copy Stardew Valley. Is like, oh, you've got a neat little town and there's all these people there and you get to know them and you have to do different stuff. Even if they're putting a different spin on it, like something like Graveyard Keeper where there's, you're actually dealing with bodies and body parts and stuff. I kind of like this idea that, no, you start off and you're just by yourself. And it is somewhat survival-ish, but it is around, maybe you've got an area where the radiation hasn't reached, or you can put up some sort of barriers that like will let you start to grow stuff. But the levels of radiation in the ground will like affect the plants and they'll mutate and different things like that.
And your ever trustful cat dog, is running around.
Before the disaster, you had 2 pets, but now they've somehow
fused into one. It's not the lovable cat dog from Nickelodeon. This is a rather
grotesque being.
Demonic thing. John Carpenter's The Thing sort of creation.
It just sits in the corner, kind of moaning, and you just have to take care of it and feed and water it.
Yeah, yeah.
It's got a little patch of fur.
If it gets nice and strong, it can actually help defend your property from massive irradiated bears.
I like the idea of bringing in some defense stuff for sure.
Well, you if you do well enough with your planting and you plant the Venus flytraps just on the edge of like some of the radiation, they actually can grow quite large and monstrous.
Yeah, I like the idea of, because a big thing in those growing games, essentially those farming games, is you gather your ingredients and you've got to water them and whatever. But I like the idea that you start to learn the mutations essentially of different plants. So it's like if you grow it in a non-irradiated area, it'll grow normally and you can grow food or you can grow whatever. But you start to experiment and find that, if I grow this beanstalk with 70% irradiation, then it actually becomes a creature that will wrap its stalks and hold onto any invaders and choke the life out of them, or whatever.
I'm almost picturing like, it's too dangerous to go out at night.
Mm-hmm.
the day is all about, setting up your protections for night and all this sort of stuff. And when it comes to night, you kind of barricade yourself in, you set yourself up in front of the fire with a nice cup of hot chocolate and a shotgun.
Yeah.
Like, you're sort of drinking that.
You're sitting there,
scared.
You're listening, you're listening to the sounds outside of your plants, taking out as many things as they can. And if you start to hear banging on the door, then they've got past your defenses and it's time to defend yourself.
The sheriff has come to town to let you know that everything's not so bad.
Well, then okay. Well, I think that when you do actually meet other humans, that has to be a big event. Then I think it's that you're by yourself. You're literally you're isolated here. You don't know if anyone else in the world is even alive. And so after a good few weeks or months of gameplay time and learning the ropes of running this place by yourself, then whether it's due to exploring out, like because you've managed to build and craft yourself more protection to go out for venture further or go faster or vehicles or whatever, that you then run into other people, or after a certain amount of time or a certain event, like someone finds their way to your settlement.
Mm-hmm. Do you think it's like a sheriff/librarian that is kind of merged together?
So like your cat dog, they used to be two people.
Yeah, kind of like they used to be two people. It's kind of like it's mainly the sheriff, but the librarian's on the shoulder sort of saying, your books are late.
That's all. That's the only sentience left in this librarian is when it sees a book, it checks to see if it's late or not.
So I suppose as far as a gameplay is concerned, what are the goals of the game? What are you trying to get out of this?
Your goals, I think like a Stardew Valley game, it's to sort of get your harvesting up to the point where you've got nice farmland, nice clear areas to continue your crops going. I don't know if we go to the level of automation. That might be going a bit too complex. I think it's more just, I guess where it comes down to is where is the economy in this? Like, what does growing things in excess, like obviously you grow things for survival, but once you start growing things to excess, is it that by then you have got in contact with like trade caravans, or like you know enough about some of the other people out there that you can start to trade? Or is it things like, if you grow enough fucking mutated blueberries, then it keeps the bears away, and so it's adding protection, it's adding to your ability to survive in different ways than just eating them, essentially. Yeah.
I kind of like the idea that you're all set for food, but what you're in danger of is like the flaming, irradiated bears coming up and actually setting your log cabin on fire. So it's all about, stopping that from happening.
So you think that they're so irradiated, they're just spontaneously combust, catch on fire?
Yeah. It's kind of like, if you remember Left 4 Dead, where you had the boomers that, they get up close to you and explode and cover you in all that stuff. That's pretty much what happens with the bears. They run up to your cabin and they just explode and fire goes everywhere, and, they need to get a lot of fire in there because the wood is pretty wet from all the snow.
Right. Look, I think that's just one of the challenges then of dealing with the different enemy types, right? And that maybe you do have, again, certain types of plants, you learn the recipes, you're buying recipes off people. They're like, oh, like here's 3, irradiated mutation versions. If you plant them in this soil and irradiate it this much, then you get this variant, which can like put out fires or something. Like it's, it sucks moisture up from the ground and sprays it onto any nearby flames.
Cool.
All right.
Okay. 3, 2, 1, click.
Yeah. Warmed punch.
Liquid tearing.
Okay. So what is in the punch? That was where my mind went, was some sort of spiked punch.
Warm liquid punch. Look, It's to me that's like
warmed spiced punch at some really terrible like school dance.
Oh, I'm just imagining that it's been hours since the ice is all melted and all this sort of stuff, and it's just this warm, sickly liquid, but people are still drinking.
Is this a story? Is this a game set across the evening at like a school dance? Like, I guess if you're in America, like a winter formal or something like that. Yeah.
Because, maybe that's why it's warm. because it's a winter formal. Like, it kind of brings it in that, you know, they thought that a spiced, sort of ginger beer sort of thing.
I like the idea of it staying, that it's like the ice, because I kind of like the idea of almost, visualizing the passage of time across the night by how much ice is left in the punch.
Oh, yeah.
And also involving the punch in some way. Like, it definitely gets spiked at some point in the evening, and that drives the story to some degree, you know. So, do you think you play a student, or do you think you play like a chaperone teacher?
I like the idea of playing a chaperone.
Yeah.
And just sort of, I know that we have done a game in the past where, you know, the chaperone sort of gets in between the teenagers.
We specifically did stop them from dancing too close. I think this is a bit more narrative based and like events across the night that you're involved in.
Yeah. And it's like, this is, you know, what else could go wrong in this night? All you're trying to do is make sure that the kids have a nice, happy time. And there's just, you know, ruffians that are, you know, riding their motorcycles through the basketball courts outside. Yep. So you got to sort of get rid of them, and then you come back inside and something else has happened, and you keep on basically getting pulled away from chaperoning the actual party.
Yep.
And so you're not actually seeing, you know, the punch gets spiked, or, you know, the band frontman get punched in the face by like
the basketball ring get ripped down, you know, because it's in the school gym, or I do like that idea that every time you come back, there's just like some new thing that's happened that you've just missed. Essentially, you're seeing the aftermath of. Yeah. Yeah, that's cool.
And it's like these amazing things that everyone's going, oh my God, you won't believe what happened. And it's like,
and you're outside like dealing with, you know, fucking
dealing with the raccoons that got into the bins, and you're just sort of shooing them off.
Dealing with the AV club kids who all threw up after, you know, drinking the spike punch. Yeah. So what sort of game, I mean, it strikes me sort of as an adventure game of sorts, whether it's sort of classic point and click, or you could go a bit different.
I do like the idea of a classic point and click, and sort of like the first thing that sort of comes up that you as a chaperone have to do is like the potential prom queen accidentally tears her dress. Mm-hmm. And so the first thing that you're doing is you're sort of calming her down. You sort of, maybe you're the home ec teacher, and you sort of, you know,
or you just go off to the lost and found. It's like, I'm sure we've got something we can replace for you.
Oh, look, we've got a lovely prom dress here in the lost and found.
This is, you know, I think this was actually Miss O'Hanley's dress from last prom when she got a little bit into that spike punch, but it looks like it'll fit you.
But yeah, I think that, you know, is a good jumping off point, that, you know, you get to know the teacher character is, you know, calm. They're caring about the students, and they really care about the students having a good night. And then just having to go out and do.
It's very much a cliche to, you know, have the teacher be a hard ass or just be useless or whatever. Like, I think they're capable. But the night just keeps getting away from them in these various ways. Yeah. And I think exploring then, because you want to get to know some of the students as a player, and their relationship with the teacher, you know, whether they like him or not. And also then just getting a sense of like the social dynamics in the school. But yeah, I do. I'm actually picturing like a classic 2D retro-ish point and click in a way, where every time you come back to that, you know, large prom scene, the large gym scene, there's just different animations of different characters happening in all sorts of places, and you notice different background stuff has changed. And
yeah, I'm seeing it as like a Thimbleweed Park / Maniac Mansion, where the 2D scene goes for quite a while, so you're sort of able to walk along. Exactly. There's a couple of different exits that you can go through.
Yes. Because then, because then you can do some really good reveals as you come back, and the screen pans across to, like, you know, the center where the stage is. And yeah, instead of when you left, the band was playing, and when you come back, like,
there's just a tortoise. Just a tortoise.
Sure. Yeah, exactly.
It's like, oh my God, why is there a tortoise on stage, and why is everyone cheering? Tortoise, tortoise, tortoise.
I love the idea that something like that doesn't get explained until like the end as well, like right at the end of the game, it all becomes clear. That'd be good. I like that, actually. That's a good setting for... And you wouldn't... That's actually a good setting for a relatively small adventure game. Well, like, in the amount of scenes you'd need. You know, you don't necessarily need hundreds.
Yeah, you can keep on going back to the car park. You can go back. You can go out to
the science room,
the principal's office. You can go to the science room, and then and come back to the gymnasium. And every time you come back to the gymnasium, it's just slightly different. Like you can just put different things around everywhere.
Yeah, and then you're looking at all those things and finding out new stuff, and you're seeing different people in there in different situations, and that will often, kick off the next chain of puzzles or whatever, or the next sort of act of the game. But yeah, that's really cool. I like that a lot.
Okay.
Let's go again.
3 to 1 click.
Yeah.
Ooh. Doomed compliment.
Prescribed lasting. Doomed compliment is interesting.
Yeah, it's like a juxtaposition, isn't it? It's like, ooh.
Well, yeah, like that giving someone a compliment would then somehow set you or them on the path to some sort of peril or disaster.
Destruction or, yeah.
Yeah.
And what were your words again? Sorry?
Prescribed lasting.
Prescribed lasting. Ooh, so I'm thinking that this is a lasting compliment. It's one of those sort of things that really sticks with you, and it's almost a backhanded compliment. It's sort of like something that was always doomed to sort of come back at you.
All right, I'm trying to think how we bring this into gameplay. Like, we could definitely just come up with a story where something like this happens, and that kicks off and the narrative. But I'm almost wondering if there's something here around like simulating people's moods in a town as these people walk around, and choosing the right spot to like give a compliment, because then people's moods like affect everyone's moods around them. But if something bad happens, their mood do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah. Okay. So I think your main character is a pharmacist, hence the prescribed sort of thing comes into it.
Uh-huh. And
he gives what he considers a compliment to a bikie who's come in.
Okay.
I'm seeing that, bikies can be, kind of hard and mean, but also kind of, a bit soft.
Well, there's definitely
get to know them and all this sort of stuff.
The cliche there of the compassionate bikie essentially being unexpected.
But the idea of like what you think is a compliment of, saying something about his bike, about how good it is, when it turns out that some word that you actually said basically triggered him that, that the bike is actually only a loaner bike and his real bike is actually not quite as good as like, maybe you said, I love the Harley Davidson. At least you don't have a Suzuki or something like that. And, it turns out that, it's like a doomed sort of thing from that perspective. And it sort of sets
So
off
do we follow the bikie then? Or are we what's the, is this a game that you essentially, you're following a string of compliments? So you play the pharmacist.
Ooh.
And then the pharmacist gives the bikie
where the whole game you're following the bikie, right?
Okay.
But you play all the other characters that are interacting with the bikie.
Oh, all right. So is it sort of little vignettes or something, and then the bikie shows up?
Little vignettes, and then, yeah. So it's basically, you're going through, you can maybe link these characters like the pharmacist and like the librarian and like these other sort of people. But the idea of, being able to actually have these sort of vignettes, your main character is actually the bikie.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't realize that until after you go through like 2 or 3 of these scenes and you realize, hang on, we're always following this bikie.
Mm.
We're only playing the NPCs, as it were, like in this game. You're almost, getting that sense of maybe you've got some prejudices against this bikie just because of the way he looks, sort of thing. Like the sheriff immediately thinks he's up to no good, and like.
So I guess it comes like, what do you do as each character? Is it sort of dialogue stuff, and you're just sort of playing through it in that way and like making some dialogue choices?
You make some dialogue choices. As the pharmacist, you're filling out the bikie's prescription. So you're having to do like the mini game of going ahead and
right. So you give them
putting all these pills into the basket.
You give them some little things
stuff.
to do. I do very much like this idea of essentially following this bikie's story, via these NPCs. And like some of them might not even directly interact with him. It's like you're someone else in the laundromat and you see the bikie come in.
You're having a conversation with someone else about like something that's going on. He comes in and talks to some other guy
or just
and walks out.
Or, throws some stuff in the laundry and leaves, puts in 2 hours worth of coins and leaves. And you can go over and you can see what's in there and try to glimpse through to figure out what's going on here. Maybe you get a sense.
You
see
look
like
in there
a
and you
stuffed
see
toy or something.
You see his helmet just going around and you're like, what? Why is he washing his helmet?
But yeah, I like the idea of and maybe we even jump around in time.
Yeah.
So that you can have a moment like that and then you jump to, earlier that morning when he got his coffee and you playing the barista. And as he walks out the door, you see like he trips over a dog and spills coffee all into his helmet or whatever, right? Yeah. Like you see some of those connections. But again, yes, you're only seeing them via these NPCs and you still have to do the little mini games like
via these PCs. I mean, is really what you're doing because you're playing these other characters.
The main character is an NPC basically. Of the story. Yeah.
So then I think that there is a way that you could actually tell like a pretty interesting story and keep the player interested in what's going on in the background, but also keep them interested in what each of these characters, like you can maybe go back to the pharmacist who then interacts with like one of the other characters.
I think you have some intertwining stuff there as well where, like you were playing the pharmacist and, but next you play like the nurse who has to go to the pharmacy in an emergency to be like pick up a prescription for someone who's coming or what, something like that. Or the like the dental assistant or something. We won't make you play a dentist. It's all right. That we wouldn't be that evil.
Good. God.
But you might
scared me for a second.
Yeah. But yeah, like, because then once the player has, noticed that thread of the bikie coming through, as they get to a new character, they're going to be like, oh, okay, they're going to be keeping an eye out for it. Like, that's going to be the fun of it.
How does this tie into the main story? And the main story is obviously, there may be your whole thing in this is, transfer all the clothes from the washing machine into the dryer while having this conversation. You're also looking in the background, trying to eavesdrop and hear, like get into the right position so you can hear what's happening in the
Do you think this is VR?
Conversation. Ooh, yeah, I kind of do like that idea.
Then the mini games will just be a little bit more fun because everything's more fun in VR. And so, doing the coffee, it might just be giving you directions of like, grab the coffee, whatever thing and hook it into the espresso machine and like press these buttons and do the milk. But yes,
answer these questions and
like you still have to do dialogue stuff and like look at the customers or they start getting mad at you or whatever. But at the same time, there's essentially just this like scene playing out that, and then the bikie does come up and it's like, okay, you have to interact with them as well, but you have to observe the customers in front for him to get to the front of the line, right? Like,
and depending on how well you did, depends on how irate he is. Like,
you might
all
get
he's wanting to do is,
might get some branching dialogue at least or some different things there based on how well you've done. And then, it like sucks you out of that head and puts you into another one. And I think in some places there are clocks that you can see like what time it might be. Some places there aren't. And you just kind of just have to go by like the sunlight outside or different thing there, to figure out, what order are these things happening in? You're almost like quantum leaping around this town to solve the problem of the bikie.
Yeah, and effectively, like, you can come back to this whole thing of, the bikie was actually feeling like he was worthless. And, depending on your interactions with him as all the different NPCs, you can actually maybe increase his morale sort of throughout the day. Like, even though all these things sort of start happening and...
Well, yeah, particularly if we're doing it at a time, I like that you can kind of pull a fast one a bit where you imply early on that this guy is violent and an asshole in some ways because, like, he broke something here or he snapped at someone over here. But then when you jump back, you see like, oh no, like people have been treating him like shit and there are some sort of reasons for why this is happening, or like this was actually a misunderstanding. And yeah, bring a bit more humanity into it and sort of have it be a tale of, oh, don't treat people based on the way they look and your first impression.
Exactly. I don't know. I really like this. And you saying VR sort of brings me back to my son has been playing a lot of Job Simulator recently. Yeah. And like, it's such a cool, weird game, but then to add a little bit of story in there and
that's it. I think having that thread through where, yeah, basically it would sort of be a job, like the actual gameplay itself would kind of be Job Simulator-esque, where you're just doing these simple tasks and trying to match, the right things to make the right, coffee or to fulfill the prescription or whatever. Empty the laundry basket into the thing. But yeah, you've just got
separate whites and colors sort of thing.
You've just got this throughput. You've just got this through line of this character. Yeah, that's really cool. All right.
3 to 1 click.
Yeah. Romantic debt.
Dependent delta.
So my putting all those in my head, and I don't know if this is where we can go because I don't know if there's a game here, but some sort of romantic gesture sending a kid on an expensive plane flight on Delta Airlines. For some sort of romantic gesture reason. That's where my mind went on that. Because they're your dependent.
It's like, as a Valentine's gift, you've sent your girlfriend's kid on a flight across the United States and back again so that you get some time off.
Something, exactly, yeah. And it's really expensive. Puts you into debt.
God.
There's not a game there.
Okay. Delta Force, dependent, kid Delta Force. With a romantic liaison happening between, I don't know, two star-crossed lovers. The leader of the Delta Force and the leader of the opposition fall in love.
Like the person they're supposed to be killing or something?
Yeah.
What is Delta Force? Is that actually a thing? Or
yeah, Chuck Norris was in a film called Delta Force, I'm pretty sure.
Oh, yeah, but, I mean, is it just the name for a group, or is there a real thing? Oh, okay.
Delta Force.
There is specifically a Delta Force within the US Army.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really want to do the US Army, so...
Let's click again.
3 to 1 click.
Hostile chat.
Causal amp.
For some reason, I'm picturing like this chat is occurring on like a cold, rainy afternoon.
Okay.
I'm thinking that it's set in a diner.
Okay.
Right?
Yep.
So just a small diner in the middle of nowhere. These two people sort of come in and maybe you're playing, I don't know, the waitress or the cook behind the scenes sort of thing, and you keep on hearing these little things happening.
Could this be in a similar vein to something like Life is Strange or the upcoming game 12 Minutes? This is.
I thought you were going to say, and the upcoming game Life is Strange 3?
No. Is this a time loop game?
Okay, yep.
Where essentially you're playing this conversation over and over, but obviously because of things that you know from earlier loops, you can alter the conversation into different pathways.
Mm-hmm.
And then perhaps, yeah, at some point, like something else happens in the diner, like someone starts to choke, or essentially,
or the cook, gets rather badly burnt from like a fryer fire.
Yeah. These things that are going to happen then at certain points as you get further and further through. Like, I almost feel like you don't maybe even make it through, or like things happen that end the conversation earlier. Like the very first loop, I'm picturing this as maybe like a relationship chat. It's like a breakup or something, or it's a discussion about a relationship, and
you accidentally pour coffee in their laps, stops the whole conversation.
Well, or just that if essentially given no other inputs, they break up with you and leave, and the conversation ends. but then you find yourself walking into the diner again. And so this time you can kind of know, like, oh, they're, because of something they said about why they're breaking up with you, or, and maybe they're mistaken about something that happened, right? Like maybe they think you're cheating on them. Like it's a misunderstanding kind of situation. Because I don't want to go into like, oh, you convinced them to stay when you've been a shitty person or something like that. I think it's they think you're cheating on them. They leave, it's done, but yeah, like you can preempt them this time, and so that expands the conversation, and it like then you actually get to discuss it a little bit back and forth. But then at a certain point in that conversation, oh yeah, like there's a fire, and so whether that then ends the conversation or it's just there's a particular branch there, but then next time, because the fire is going to happen, you can like first go over there and like, I don't know,
fix the fire extinguisher.
Yeah,
and,
fix the fire.
Make sure it's actually
like that
going to work, because you can't stop the fire, but at least this time by preempting the conversation. And each time you go back, I kind of don't want it to be that, as you said, that, you are trying to get this person to stay with you, and yes, you have been a shitty person, and
I think it's more about
gaslighting them into the whole idea that you're going to be better this time. And
no, exactly. I don't want it to be that. I think
which is why I almost like it that it was a third person, like a bystander who is sort of maybe almost a guardian angel helping this chat along.
Maybe. I think what you could do, I do more like the idea, I think, of you being one of the people in the relationship, just because of the stakes behind it and that sort of thing, than being sort of immediate to you. But like, I agree, like one of those time loop things, and there's some problematic shit in Groundhog Day around this and a lot of other ones, where it's like, oh, you like learn everything about this person to convince them to love you or whatever. And this could be a similar thing where it's like, oh, you like preempt all their answers to get them to stay with you. I think it's more nuanced than that. I think it's that they come into this ready to break up with you over a misunderstanding. Because you're able to like clear that up, it prompts a larger talk about the relationship as a whole. And maybe it doesn't end with you getting back together, but it's more of an introspective kind of communicative
it ends
thing.
In a mutual breakup in the end, because you kind of realize that maybe you aren't meant to be together. And
yeah, exactly. Like it's a bit more introspective of that, of just, oh, if, when we communicate about these things, like we can come to a better mutual understanding of each other and respect each other, and, that's where it ends up. But yes, it does so via all these moments that otherwise would essentially force the conversation to end in some other way.
Yeah. I'm imagining one of the ways is like your partner is allergic to like cherries or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And they order the apple pie, and that there happens to be a cherry just on the second bite. You do something to make sure that they don't eat that cherry this time, and then, they get annoyed at you for stealing their food. Again, it's one of their pet peeves against you, and that starts up another conversation.
Exactly.
You're always stealing my food, but you're doing this because you're trying to save them from not actually.
Yeah, that's that sort of thing. I like that sort of idea, and just, playing again with that time loop idea, but in a bit of a different way.
I'm just wondering if kind of like the Groundhog Day, you can sort of come in and, sort of take the register and sort of run out the door with it, and you walk into the next one. So like,
I think you can throw things in there that just, essentially immediately end the loop, in some fucked up weird way.
Yeah.
That'd be pretty fun. Yeah.
Yeah. I like that. I like that a lot.
Yeah. Cool. 3, 2, 1, click. Seventh affection.
Hilarious lavatory.
All right. Hilarious lavatory's got some potential there.
Okay. It's a comedy club, and it's set in the bathroom.
Okay. Yeah.
Yep.
That's cool.
So that kind of gives you the idea as to, it's almost
you play the
kind
toilet.
of like, well, you play the fly on the wall in the toilet. You get to sort of view all these.
I do like the idea of actually playing a literal fly, and you can fly around and view this from any point in this toilet, but every time you try to escape, like the door closes on you or whatever, like you can't actually get out of this room. And yeah, you sort of, I guess you start seeing these things unfold.
I've got this whole thing about not being the main focus of the game.
Yeah,
right
that is a bit of a trend. I think the challenge there
is keeping it interesting.
And having some sort of impact on still having some impact on the story, even though you're not playing sort of the main character. I think that worked with the bikie game because you were still interacting with him in some way. But
okay, I like the idea of it being set in the bathroom of a comedy store style comedy club.
Yeah.
You sort of come in and you are playing maybe rather than it being a fly on the wall, you're playing like the owner of the club.
Mm-hmm.
And like obviously something's gone wrong tonight and your character's kind of trying to talk to the second in charge and get them to sort of stand up and take some responsibility or something like that.
Okay, and this comes up like while you're both washing your hands or something. Like I do like that idea a lot. I like the idea of limiting the scope and the setting of a game and the challenge that comes with that. You know, it feels like something we could actually do in like a 7-day adventure game jam or something.
Yeah.
How do you realistically keep the story or keep the characters just in the bathroom?
Well, what I think is that this is about their relationship, like as in when I say relationship, I don't necessarily mean that there's an actual romantic thing happening here, but it's the business relationship of almost all the big decisions in the club's history have happened in this bathroom. And so it's kind of like the first time that it happens, you know, you're maybe talking with this person in the bathroom and you both kind of decide, that's it. Let's just buy this place. And
so you
sort of
saying
set you off on the business.
Oh, okay. So is this not set in like one continuous time?
Not one continuous time, but maybe this is from when you take over the bathroom. Oh, when you take over the club, and it's like
you start and you just take over the bathroom. The old owner has said, "All right, you want to own this club? Well, look, start with the bathroom. Show us what you can do with that."
I'm just imagining, you know, the different stories that bathroom has sort of experienced over all this time, and just having it set in this one location, and you know, these people come in to, you know, cry when they've been booed off stage, and you know, they're feeling nauseous because they're too scared to go up on stage and all this sort of stuff. Like the different stories that you could have, and your character being the owner of this place, you know, coming in and you know, comforting these people and you know, making sure that they feel good, and you kind of get the feeling as to all the different things that are actually going on in this club from this one location.
I do like that. I like that, and I like how you could. Because there's a lot you could communicate just by, you know, the door opening, you're hearing like jeering coming from outside and someone runs in crying, or like,
and then the door closes and it cuts softened.
It off. Yeah, it's softened and you know, you can't hear it. Yeah. And then like having some conversation happen there, or, you know, they get a quiet moment to themselves and then someone else comes in and there's something, or because you could tell some really interesting stories there where you see that same character later and you're hearing the cheering, like the way, because they've made it at that point. Or
I kind of like the idea that this occurs over 7 scenes, kind of bringing in your 7th affection sort of thing. But these scenes actually, you know, some of them go on for a little bit longer than what you sort of think. And it's kind of like a visual novel, but it's you do get some agency in what you can choose to.
I'm very much picturing it again as like a old school adventure game almost, because I'm picturing you can just have the one view basically, and I think you're right. I think you do 7 scenes and maybe you set it over like 7 years.
Yeah.
And so you see the changes in that bathroom over time.
Yeah, but you also see that nervous person who came in the first time, who then got booed off stage, who's now coming in and getting rapturous applause and has really blossomed as a comedian, but then they're telling the owner that, you know, this club is too small for them now. And it's kind of like that heartbreak that the owners, you know, really, you know, helped them with their career, but now it's like this
kind of leaving them in their dust. Yeah.
But then I like the idea that at the end, you know, it's sort of like this comedian sort of comes back and actually
maybe they buy it from this owner or something. Like maybe
maybe that can
there's a
that can
turnaround.
actually
So maybe it's
happen.
not, you might want to set it over a longer time. Maybe it's every 2 years or something.
Yeah,
but yeah, that's cool. I think the challenge here would obviously be it is very much like a visual novel at that point. Like there's not a lot of you wouldn't be having a lot of puzzles and stuff. You'd be just doing some dialogue and different things. That's not a bad thing.
No,
I mean really,
visual novels. Visual
I think
novels
this
can
would
be
actually make
quite big.
Like this idea in general would probably make like a good play.
Yeah,
single location story being told with these, few characters. But we're not a comedy, improvised comedy, stage writing, screen, podcast. So we had to make it into a video game.
Come back next week where we change our career as
we're going to
video
pivot.
game. We're going to pivot to we'll sell tickets to our latest play and
new stage right.
But I just think that there could be a cool introspective story that just occurs throughout this whole bathroom's life. Where it's bright and shiny at the start and sort of gets a little bit darker and dingier, and then it's like at its worst when this comedian comes in and sort of maybe discusses purchasing it off this guy, and then it sort of goes to the epilogue where the
it's all
bathroom
clean
is
and
clean.
nice. Yeah. I definitely think you see the arc of this venue through how well the bathroom is being kept up, and
graffiti just starts appearing, like
the mirror's
inside
cracked
the
and doesn't
stall
get fixed, and there's one of the toilets is out of order for 4 years or whatever.
I do like the idea, like when you think of we were talking last week about Elite, I think it was last week, Elite Beat Agents, where you had like the little interstitial sort of things that actually came up. I like the idea of when the door opens, you kind of go in comic book style of seeing the creak, the door opens, and you have that kind of comic book style,
just to get a bit of different perspective,
just to give it a bit of perspective, and you can hear the crowd jeering in the background, and then slam, and the door sort of closes, and you can have different angles within the bathroom, but it's kind of like the actual feeling of the bathroom changes over these different times.
Yeah. I think essentially the bathroom is a character in this story, and
it is
changes over time. Yeah, no, I agree. I think you do a lot of environmental storytelling via the bathroom itself, basically. That's awesome. Cool.
Hey Ben.
Yeah.
What 3 words?
Oh, all right. Let's jump back into some what 3 words, and this just to give people an idea very quickly. This is another way we get random prompts, and it is from what3words.com, which splits the world up into 3 meter square things and assigns words to them. So my 3 words are jobber, hiking, curvatures. I don't know what a jobber is. One who jobs.
Steve Jobber.
Steve Jobber of
by the way, we're using
Appler.
the What 3 Words API to get these today, because I've come up with a way of like randomly selecting a place in the world. So we're no longer having to go and manually select these words. They automatically come to us in a random fashion.
Yep. So I have no idea where this is in the world.
Okay. So hiking.
Yes. Jobber, hiking, curvatures. So is this about like hiking so far that you like go over the horizon sort of thing? Like, is it around the curvature of the earth in some way?
Ooh. Now I'm wondering whether, you've always been told kind of like a Truman Show-esque thing where you don't go towards the horizon. Basically, you stay in this small little area. And when you're hiking and you go, away, so when you're looking back, you can't even see your sort of area anymore. Like there's a big mountain near your area, and it's gone around the curvature.
I do like the idea of using the curvature as sort of an indication of how far you've traveled.
Yeah.
So that, yes, you have, maybe you're in a town that has like this giant tower or something, right?
Yeah.
Just in the middle of nowhere. And how much of that tower you can see kind of shows how far away from this town you are, in any particular direction.
Now, I think that this is a smaller planet than Earth because I think this is on a separate world. So you're not having to go 33 kilometers or whatever to start seeing a difference in the height.
But it's bigger than like a Mario Galaxy world.
Exactly. So it's somewhere in between the size of our world and Mario Galaxy world. It's somewhere in the middle there.
Somewhere, between there. So you can imagine.
Yeah, there's just something about that feeling of you've never been out of sight of this tower.
Yeah.
So this tower sort of goes off almost Satisfactory style space elevator up into space. So you can sort of see it. It goes really, really high.
I think you need to be able to see the top, though. And I think there's a light or something. Like there are lights up it that change in color or something, or essentially you've been told you must never be out of sight of this tower because that means you've traveled too far from home.
If you do, that's where you come across the jobbers.
The jobbers.
Now the jobbers are like the native creatures on this planet, I think. And what the tower actually sort of radiates is like an anti-jobber field. Yeah.
It kind of blows them away. It's kind of like a blow jobber.
No, I was thinking more.
Oh, it's more like a disembodied hand. Kind of like
more like a disembodied hand
jobber.
Away. Yeah, it's a hand jobber.
Yeah, and right around the rim of this is where you'll meet the jobbers.
Yes.
So essentially, is this like these are aliens of sorts that have come to terraform this, or like come to like.
Well,
colonize.
You are playing one of the aliens.
That's what I mean.
Who's come to colonize.
Yeah, they've come to colonize and they've set up this thing. How long have they been here then? Is this like a failed colonization mission essentially where they're like, okay, we made it here and we only have enough resources to like set up this one area and we haven't been able to push back these jobbers any further. We've done enough so that it's been, because I'm thinking, if you've grown up only knowing about this tower and this space, like it's been multiple generations at this point.
Yeah. Yeah, I like the idea that you actually find like a Satisfactory style. You actually find like a crashed other pod that came down, and it contains something really old technology. Like this is technology from your grandparents or something like that, which looks almost like 2000s sort of technology, but they're using phones that have. Well, screens that have no backing to them and all this sort of stuff. They're clear sort of screens. This is like an iPad/tablet sort of thing, that you can find out all this information on. But essentially you're finding out that, your grandparents or your great grandparents actually came to this planet to colonize. You're part of like another galactical fleet or something like that, and
it's like
almost
some
knocked off course.
Some sort of seeding. They're trying to seed the galaxy in some way from their home planet, and they've sent these colony ships out to hundreds of other worlds. But and maybe it's just that they were so desperate they didn't actually they didn't know what was on these planets. They had some sense that they'd support life, but you got to this planet and these jobbers were here. The native creatures. And you find out essentially that like 95% of the colonists died trying to fight these off until they, managed to come up with a way to repel them, and put up this tower. And the tower's grown, the tower has grown over generations, but they're reaching the limit of their power. And
I'm starting to wonder in this particular world, like, they obviously brought a whole heap of different seeds, to try and cultivate different plants around here. I'm kind of thinking that the only thing that took were like citrus plants.
Okay.
Because, because of the acidity of maybe the environment and that sort of stuff, it was only the acidic sort of lemons and limes and stuff that could actually grow. So, a lot of the stuff that you grew up loving was, the lemonade and that sort of stuff, but you really didn't enjoy, the other sorts of food that the local plants had to offer. Like it always felt like you weren't supposed to be eating this stuff.
Right. Yeah.
Like, it always felt alien to you. And to find out that it is actually literally alien to you is actually kind of...
Yeah, like a bit of a revelation.
Cathartic.
Yeah, I think this is then a story of... Well, so where do we take it? Do you think these jobbers are actually intelligent?
I think there's...
Or do we keep them as kind of mindless?
I don't think they're mindless. I
enemies?
just think that they're, a little bit more primitive. So they're... If they were left alone for a couple more millennia to stew a little bit more, then yes, they would have become the
intelligent race on the planet.
They would have become the intelligent race on the planet, but you sort of coming to the planet has actually disrupted their...
Because I'm just trying to think what happens then when you find this out and you decide essentially, all right, fuck this, I'm going beyond the horizon of this thing.
For some reason, in my head, I'm sort of almost seeing that maybe the what's sort of having you go out on this journey is that there's actually some interference coming from something in the future. Like, basically, almost these the future occupants of this planet, who happen to be descendants of the jobbers, are trying to get you to figure out this stuff to try and get you to leave. Enough information to actually get you off the planet so that the natural evolution can
Okay, that's an interesting thing. So the descendants of the jobbers become super intelligent enough that they invent time travel, basically.
Yeah.
So is there been some disturbance then that's made it that they need to come back, or did they just discover that was always in like the thread of time, and that it's like, the way that time works in this thing is if they don't then come back, then they will never become the people who invented time travel, and it'll create a paradox, essentially.
Yeah, it's effectively in the future things are starting to disappear, as it's kind of like
Marty McFly style.
Yeah, Marty McFly in Back to the Future, that they start realizing that as the colonists start killing like some of the jobbers,
right,
effectively it's destroying whole lineages of people in the future.
Okay,
and there's only a certain amount of time before you kill the wrong jobber and the person who, created time travel, or who actually
came back to, the descendant. You kill the jobber whose descendant is the one who actually ended up coming back to convince you to have your people leave, essentially. Yeah. I like that then, because I like the idea that, it's been relatively peaceful for the last 30 years, but they're going through another expansion phase. And so they're building another level onto the tower, which will essentially push out the range of this repelling
push out
force.
The hands,
and
expand that rim.
It spreads the rim of the area just that little bit further. But part of that does mean they have to actually like go up against the jobbers on the rim. Mm-hmm. So yes, essentially they need to stop that expansion from happening, from reaching completion.
Yeah. Now I think the other reason is that it turns out that like there's something that happened in the past that was saved by these future people. So basically, if you wipe out all the jobbers,
there's like a secondary paradox.
Everything sort of gets wiped out because of, there's already, an evolutionary paradox sort of.
Oh, well, maybe it's more about you find out through this happening that later on for them, but earlier for you, they came back and did something that like literally let you survive, or like your parents survive or something. And so you start disappearing in that same way. And then you have to essentially convince them that you are worth, like, once this is all done with, I'll stop the expansion, it's fine, but you have to go back to, 20 years ago and save my parents or whatever, or like had previously done in the timeline.
I think what could end up happening is that, there is actually a civilization that is foretold by these other people that kind of combines, the off-worlders and the jobbers, and they end up working together.
Yeah. Yeah, that's cool. That'd be cool. That'd be a good ending to that, where you discover that yes, like that
that there's actually a better future than what they're even seeing by having, like, I mean, this is going to another podcast, which was the Adventure Zone, where they said that there were two different options at the end of the Balance Saga, and then they chose the third different option.
Right.
Yeah, I like the idea that you're choosing the another option that actually
that isn't one or the other of these species gets wiped out. Essentially, yeah. It's like the end of Mass Effect 3 as well.
Yeah.
Choose the integration option or whatever it was.
That's really cool.
Yeah, I like that a lot. That's a fun story. I could see some.
I can see the gameplay in it as well. Like it's sort of like a cross between like a Far Cry 3 of being able to walk around and do stuff, as well as, you know, you're investigating, finding these old tablets and stuff, and it's all about exploration and sort of survival combat, but not survival in the fact that you got to build shit. So it's just combat in the way that
it feels a bit like Firewatch or, you know, that sort of thing, where it's mostly a walking sim kind of vibe. But yeah, you're exploring, you've maybe got some different mechanics in there for getting through obstacles and different stuff.
Oh, I saw a trailer the other day for a movie that's coming out that I swear I was watching the start of the trailer. I'm like, this is just Firewatch, the bloody movie. And then it ended up being, you know, some other thing. But I'm like, they're talking about, you know, the fire season's coming up, and, you know, it was sort of someone talking on the radio to someone. I'm like, this is just Firewatch. Like, it's already been done. Like, why are you doing this? Like, it doesn't need to be done.
Seems a bit blatant if it's not a license. But, yeah, Trev, what 3 words do you have for our final one of the night, I think?
Franchises formulated swords.
Franchises formulated swords. Okay. I mean, I immediately go to some sort of franchise blacksmith in medieval, or like in a fantasy world, where it's like the franchised version of your local blacksmith.
Your McBlacksmith.
Yeah, exactly.
McSmithies.
McSmithies. Yeah, it's probably the best one we've got. And so, is this
Blacksmithy fried chicken?
Is this like an empire building game in a sense of like you're trying to open new franchises in different places? I like the idea that you start off that you've just opened a McSmithy's blacksmith shop, and when you open one of these things, you have to make swords to their that's
their
the whole
prescriptions.
point. Yeah.
Basically, the whole game is you cannot have any autonomy, like in what type of swords you actually make. Look, this is the new sword that's coming out. It's a broadsword, and this is how it is. It's this long. It's this sharp.
Yeah.
You know, you can't just add on, you know.
You can't like change up the hilt and put some jewels on there to sell it for more, or you can't. Yeah.
Like, you get in trouble if you start doing that. But the whole idea is that you want to sort of branch out on your own as well while you're doing, and put some of your love into this. So it's all about how do you keep Ronald McSmithy happy while you're also injecting a little bit of your own personality into your swords. Well, I wonder,
is this a bit more around rising up the ranks of this franchise, where you start literally as the low-level blacksmith who just like dips the swords after the advanced, the assistant manager blacksmith has hammered it out or whatever. Like, you're the one that just dips it in the water, and you have to do it at the right speed or it'll crack or whatever, but, or you'd have to do it fast enough or something.
Yeah.
And so you go through, a few rounds of that's what you have to do, but then you get promoted, right? You do it well enough, you get promoted. Now you're on the next level. Okay, now you got a hammer. You've got a hammer. You get to, you get to actually fold the metal and hammer it down, and fold it and hammer it down. Or maybe there might be a few levels in between that. I don't know. Maybe you take over the bellows, or you're inserting blades into hilts or something. But And, every now and then they'll have a special promotion and they'll start selling axes for a week.
Or, special this week, a sword of healing. Heal the thing that you're attacking.
Yeah.
You hack and slice, but you're healing them for more damage.
Yeah, it's for exercise. It's like, just go out and attack people for exercise. They'll be healed right away. Blade of healing. Limited time only at a,
I'm just imagining kind of like the, the rock from, Hello from the Magic Tavern that
the healing rock.
You get hurt, but then it actually it heals you.
But I think then once you rise to the rank of like manager, you're not doing just the grunt work anymore. Now it's a bit more of directing people and making sure like you're managing morale and you're managing, a bit more around what type of, how many customers you're getting in, and maybe, obviously within the standards, you're doing marketing or stuff, and you do get to start bringing your own thing into it, and maybe raising initiatives up the flagpole to like the upper managers, like maybe we should do this and get in there. And then eventually you literally get to the franchise view, basically, where now you're managing multiple franchises and you're making decisions about the actual products that are being sold.
That's when it gets to Blacksmith and beyond.
Yeah. You manage to expand into, potion shops, target practice places. Cause, there's some synergy there. You set up, like those axe throwing places are all the rage. So you start, setting those up as well and selling axes at your McSmithies.
Why do I get the feeling that I want to add, like, you've got to go out and get the resources by putting miners on shit, and then, putting the swords through through an automation sort of thing that you're pumping at the swords and smelting them.
That feels like a different game, but that could be good too.
Yeah.
I do like the idea of automating a fantasy style automation game. I haven't actually seen that.
It's kind of like Satisfactory, but for getting the better weapons to the army that are going off and fighting, but all you're doing is just setting up the automation so you don't have to go and hand make all these swords.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think you start like with okay, this is a different game, but I think, like with Satisfactory, you do a lot of, at the very beginning, you do a lot of hand making essentially at the your equipment,
at the forge.
The forge and stuff. But yes, you start being able to automate that stuff. And because I love the image of these swords just going off some sort of conveyor into a big pile and people just
coming off the
up.
end of the conveyor into a pile. Yeah. Like, there's just something about that. And then people coming up and picking up a sword, like, you're continually feeding this pile.
Yeah. But you've got this wider level, like the war that's going on, where if you're not providing enough swords or they're not high quality enough or something, then the front lines of the war start closing in essentially. And it's like, they've started developing archers. Okay, we need to pump out more shields, to protect ourselves.
We need to go on the counteroffensive. We need to cut down all those trees, feed these logs in here, and get, a whole heap of awesome bows out.
Yeah.
Look, I've got an alternate recipe for a compound bow. So, it's actually using a bit of metal in there and a little bit of graphite.
That you can unlock things and bring in your different ingredients to get that advantage. Like there's an actual...
The first bows have got vines as like the string, and then the latest ones are... a strong, like, metal sort of.
Well, but then I do like the idea.
Like
the idea though of bringing magic into it. Like, I think this is a fantasy world.
Oh yeah.
And so some of the techniques you're doing are literally like, oh well, we need mana and we have to pump that from somewhere, or we have to generate it by killing creatures or something, right? Like, there's that level of thing in there, which you can then also automate.
I'm just imagining like this huge mana pool that you can put like mana extractors in, and it's pumping them out, and then you can combine it with other like herbs and shit that you can.
Yeah, I kind of want this all like, you put in a mana extractor and it's like a fucking goblin up the top just constantly pumping, or like turning a big wheel that pulls it all out.
It's like power isn't one of these things that you have to worry about. What you have to worry about is enough food to feed the goblins.
Yeah, to feed, exactly. Who are all running
what
on
you've got
treadmills.
is you've got a conveyor belt that actually runs down like the food for the goblins, and they're all happy.
Sorry, I love that the conveyor belts are literally powered by, like, you can power
other goblins.
Yeah, turning things. Like, so you can run, and you'd have to make it a fair length of conveyor that you can run off a single goblin. But yeah, it takes they're part of your resources. They're sitting there turning things. I like that. I like that combination of an automation game with actual, like, sort of real time strategy or survival sort of thing. Yeah, like a town sim sort of thing, where it's like, oh yeah, like, yes, you're automating all these conveyors and stuff, but like they still have to go and sleep, and if you don't have a night shift, like your whole automation shuts down.
Morale's gone down.
Yeah, like you have to set up fucking lanterns and stuff, and that is a risk of burning down your whole section. Or
now, once you get enough mana, then maybe you can actually hire wizards, and they can use their magic to actually get a whole heap of things going all at once. But you know, a wizard can only control so many different things at once, and he can only work for, like, union laws say that they can only work for 6 hours a day. So you got to find 4 of them, and you got 4 shifts of wizards then.
Yep. Yeah.
But they each get an hour's break for lunch. So you got to have goblins that can come in and do stuff.
I do like that idea, though, of very much, and like Satisfactory with the different tiers that, like, yes, initially it's just grunt work, goblins physically moving things, and then it does slowly start moving up to,
initially it's you doing that yourself. Well, you
doing it, yeah, but but as you bring on more people, it's like, okay, yes, now you can replace 20 goblins with 1 wizard, essentially, within a particular area. But then there become other resources that they need, or, maybe you can stock up on energy, like particular potions that then need another ingredient that mean your wizards can work 2 shifts. They can work double shifts.
Well, to keep their magic levels up, you've got to make sure that you're pumping them full of magic mushrooms. So, yes. Then you got to set your goblins up to do like,
I think maybe
magic mushroom factory.
I think maybe you've got farming. Yeah, I think maybe you've got farming. I haven't seen a lot of automation games that bring farming into it, but
because when you think about it, like, you can mine shit and all that sort of stuff, but how do you clear a forest and get continual wood for archers?
That's what I mean.
You gotta pay for like the peons from World of Warcraft to come and cut down all your thing, and then you got your miners that go down into and get your gold that you can use to pay for these things.
But I think you need to
union rules again. They set picket lines up and all this sort of stuff, and you can't.
I'm picturing this as a real mix
the
between.
Scouts get in, and
I'm picturing this as a real mix between Satisfactory, something like what's that? I don't know. Anyways, the more town-based sim sort of things. There's one in particular I'm thinking of that I can't remember.
And like not World of Warcraft, but Warcraft 2.
Well, aspects of that, but like Frostpunk. Did you ever play Frostpunk? A lot of that was about making these difficult decisions. Do you bring morale down by like burning the bodies of the people, or do you, bury them to because that will make the people happier, but it takes up space and needs heat and different things. So maybe you don't go quite to that level, but I'm thinking, like you can choose to work your wizards harder, but then they might strike and your whole automation shuts down, and meanwhile the front lines of the war are closing in on your big sort of world map, or I don't know if you've got a world. Yeah, you probably got a world map, but I think you also get updates from messengers coming in, right? Like you get ravens come through, and that's how you get updates of like, oh, they've started using bows and arrows or whatever. That's awesome.
And that's kind of like your tiers and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Just as you're finding like a new type of metal that you can now use and combine together to make, swords faster, like that's when they start, this group has moved over to firearms. It's like, oh shit.
You do a full-on civilization. Oh my God. Can you imagine having to do an automation game through like multiple ages like that, essentially multiple technology levels? It's like, oh, we're up to tier 73 jet fighters.
we're up to tier 83 laser fighters.
Yeah. Now we're building lasers.
Now they're TIE fighters and X-Wings, laser swords.
This doesn't make sense. Why is the technology further on less impressive than the technology from earlier on?
No, right. that to me is one of my favorite ideas that we've come up with, because it is something that we both would enjoy playing, and that literally does not exist out there yet.
I think just the base idea there of bringing the kind of people management stuff into an automation game is really fun. I feel like that's something that could be explored. And even though,
and I've said this before, really, what Satisfactory offers doesn't usually fit into what I like doing, which is more action-oriented stuff. But then again, there's a lot of exploration and stuff like that in there. Yes, you got to think a little bit about the mathematics, but it's all about the exploration, finding new recipes.
Yeah.
And I think the people aspect would actually help that even further.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and I mean, because you could do things like, maybe you can send out scouts to get some more. So while you can just go off and explore yourself, but you've got the option to reveal parts of the map to see where different resources are or something that you can then go and get. Yeah, I think the only thing I've come that's sort of seen that sort of comes close is in Oxygen Not Included. There is a lot of automation stuff in that, but it's not the focus. The focus is really on the sort of people management stuff and building them the buildings that they need and digging stuff out and whatever. It's more that late game you get automation.
Cool.
Whereas, obviously something like Satisfactory it's much more of a focus. All right. Well, we went a bit long there because we got excited in that last game, but we're going to leave it there.
Blacksmiths and Beyond. I think that's what we call it.
So thanks again for joining us this week on Bitstorm. If you want to leave us a review, listen to our previous episodes, just check out other stuff we've done, go to podchaser.com/Bitstorm. All of our stuff's up there. Check it out.
And we'd also like to thank Kurudas for the use of the song Mount Defiance off the album Containment Failure.
That's right. So thank you for joining us again this week on Bitstorm. I'm Ben Slinger.
I'm Travis Scott.
Tortoise!